Do you want more of the unchurched to know your church, to know why you exist, and to know why they should care enough to engage and connect with you? Do you want more of the de-church, the people that grew up in the church but no longer go, either for good reasons or bad reasons? Do you want them to feel a connection with your church enough to the point where they come back to the church body, to a faith community? And do you want to reach the people in your community that are falsely spiritual? They think they know Jesus. They have more of an American Jesus or more of a cultural, my dad was Christian and I grew up in church, so therefore I'm a Christian and I'm good, I'm going to do my own thing. Do you want to reach more of all three of these types of people, or specifically just one of them? That's what we're going to talk about today on today's episode. We're going to share how you can create connection with how you talk as a church, how you promote yourself as a church, how you communicate as a church. The way we communicate shows that we understand our community. And until they feel understood, they're not going to care to understand you as a church body. Look, do I wish that people would just go to church just because they felt a call and they knew that was what they were supposed to do? Absolutely, I do. I wish that was the case, but that's not the case. There are so many new obstacles in 2024 that are in front of our community to get from them to our church gatherings, whether it's at the church or somewhere else. There's obstacles in the way to get them in front of you to hear the gospel, right? And so I'm going to share with you how we can use words and the way we communicate to break down those barriers and to reach people we've never reached before and reach people that other churches have failed to reach. We're going to go over all that in today's show. Happy 2024. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Best Known Church Show, where we show you how to 10x your reach with church marketing that will help you increase your impact, make more disciples, and become the cornerstone of your community again. This is for the leaders with an outrageous vision, because anything less would be an inaccurate reflection of our Creator. The ones who have unreasonable faith, because you know God works unreasonable miracles. And the ones who are relentless in the pursuit of your calling, because anything less would not make a good and faithful servant. If that's you, you're in the right place. Now, please welcome your host and guide on this journey to become the best known organization in your community, Justin Nava.
Welcome to the Best Known Church Show. My name is Justin Nava, and if we have not met, I take full responsibility for that. This is the place where we share strategies, tips, and what's working in churches to reach people in their community, to engage and connect with them, to share the gospel, to grow the kingdom, to increase the righteousness around us, and to live out the mission that our churches are called to do. And the way that I try to do that is to help the church clarify who they are and position themselves in an authoritative and empathetic community presence that people can't help, but when they learn about you, they want to connect with you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. First of all, a little bit of a scenery change in the studio. You'll notice I no longer have a mic. I have a wireless setup. This allows me to move around a little bit more. We had some complaints at the end of last year when I introduced the whiteboard. When I turned around to write, right, I wasn't in front of my mic. And so to try to alleviate that, I'm wireless now, so I can use my hands a little bit more, I can write a little bit more, and I don't have to have as much stuff in front of me. Now, I noticed right before I went live, the audio suddenly was like half as loud. And so I'm gonna try to speak up here. I try to fix it, I'm changing cables. You know how it is. Sunday morning, service is at 9:30, 9:20, all of a sudden the mic system dies. And you're just like, oh my goodness. It's how this works, right? You know what I'm going through just as well as you know it when you have to face it yourself. So this episode, you might have to turn up just a little bit. It's not you, it's me. We're gonna get this fixed, but I am very excited to be here in 2024. As of the time of recording, this is January 23rd, and we are coming into 2024 2 weeks late, thanks to local weather. The freezing that's been happening across the country, it affected us too, and local sickness. My boy got sick. I got to take care of him through the sickness, and then I got sick. So you may even hear it in my voice a little bit. I got a little deeper voice today, but I didn't want to wait any longer. I'm still got the sniffles. I got my mute button on ready to make sure that you don't have to suffer through that, because today is a I think there's no better way to kick off 2024 than to discuss how your church can more effectively communicate and more effectively craft a brand message, brand meaning your reputation, craft a message that can capture people's attention and get them to say, I need to know more, or tell me what to do next, right? Have you ever been reached out by someone and they make a grand promise to you and you say, tell me more about that? All right, I know I harp on the AT&T people at Target when they come up to me and ask me about my phone bill. I just tell them I'm not dealing with AT&T. They owe me $111 from a promise they made last time. I'm not talking to anyone until then. But I went to Kroger a couple days ago, and a woman was there, and she was like, hey, what do you pay in electricity? Well, of course, my answer is always too much, so let's talk. And thankfully, she was a wonderful woman. I actually pulled up my electricity bill on my phone. She took a look at it, and she was like, you know what, you've got a great rate here, and we would only be able to match it. You're in a contract. We could pay out of it, but honestly, what you've got is good. So she let me on my way. What a fantastic, I mean, that's the way sales should be done. That's the way we do it at Nava Church Marketing. We are very much consultative. And that's the kind of like, okay, well I don't even remember the electricity company, but that company obviously trained her well enough to not waste time when it's not worth wasting, okay? I will always answer the door, talk to the solar guys. I will talk to anyone but AT&T. I will talk to them at the market. I will get rates. I will shop around. I am always willing to get a new quote on something that might save me money, save me time, or make my life better. Except for AT&T. AT&T, if you got a rep listening to this, what they did was they said, hey, we can get you fiber internet. I said, great, what do you need from me? Because I want fiber internet. And they said, oh, we just need a down payment, $100 plus tax, whatever it was, and then we'll come out and install it. Gave them my deposit. Get a call from the contractor the day he's supposed to come out, and he says, hey, we don't have fiber in your area. And I know this lady checked my address. I'm pretty sure I gave her and my dad's address. And there was no fiber in my area, despite what she told me or what the system told her. I'm not saying it's her fault, but I am saying I'm done talking to AT&T because they will not give me that deposit back. They owe me $111. I don't owe them nothing until they come across to me. So I am waiting for AT&T to give my money back, and that's just $111, right? And this is what churches in a similar situation, I did not plan that story, that just kind of happened. But this is what churches are facing similarly. They have a whole community. I talked to someone yesterday in a community of 24,000 people at a church that's over 100 years old in the community. How many times have those 24,000 people heard about the church, heard something bad about the church, heard that another church in town was bad, therefore this church in town is bad? There are so many obstacles that are brand new to churches that you are not trained up to deal with in seminary, that you are not equipped to handle, equipped to tackle. And communication, especially public communication, is such a lacking talent or skill in the church right now. I want to change that. I want to turn that around. And in case we haven't really talked about this, we are an agency first. We work with churches to do the work for them, to craft brand messages, to get their logo and their identity straight, to do their website, to get their website found, to run the ads for them, both the Google Grant and the Facebook ads, and to run some proactive public relations. Those are all of our services in a nutshell. But at the end of last year, I had a new mentor, and the big thing was, if you're only going to serve the people who can afford or are willing to invest in your agency services, which are not cheap, you're leaving a lot of people, not money on the table, you're leaving a lot of people on the table. And since we're in kingdom ministry, that really struck me. So this year, we're kicking off a coaching program where we're going to take all of our documents, all of our SOPs, all of our 1, 2, 3s for each of those services that I listed, and we are giving it to you and holding your hand for 12 weeks to make sure that you can do exactly what we do for less than a quarter of the price. So if you're interested in that, go to NavaChurchMarketing.com, book a call with me. We can talk about what that looks like. But all that to say, that the communication part of it is so so missing in today's churches. And the way you communicate to your flock is not the same way you communicate to the lost sheep out there, okay? Because your flock have a foundational awareness of who Jesus Christ is and what he did for their life and the purpose of your faith community, the purpose of gathering and being exhorted and encouraged and equipped on a Sunday morning. And if you want people that are lost to come to that Sunday service, you can't tell them, hey, come to church and be fed. That communicates totally different to them, and the time of speaking parables is over. We need to speak clearly. I'm not saying you can't use parables, but the purpose of parables was to not necessarily understand right there in the moment, but to understand looking back at it, right? Even the people hearing the parables didn't understand quite what Jesus was talking about. Parables are not stories. We need to tell stories. We need to clearly communicate our church to people so that they can understand who we are, why we exist, and what Jesus Christ through our church can do for them. Okay? And so a lot of people, when I talk about brand messaging, let's just jump right into it. A lot of people, when I talk about brand messaging, let me move up to the camera a little bit, believe that it's just branding. Okay? And branding, I ask 100 pastors what branding is, and I get 132 different answers, okay? And branding is simply your reputation, okay? Whenever someone says brand, think reputation, all right? It's not your logo. It's not a manipulation. It's just your reputation, okay? So a lot of pastors have that misconception that churches don't need branding. And I would agree. Corporate branding, a lot of churches don't need. Okay, now if you get to that point where you're like growing and you're fighting a reputation, you're revitalizing, or you're just not known the way you want to be known in the community, branding is a great next step for you. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that a church of 30 needs to worry about branding and having all the assets. Okay, some of them do, some of them don't. All right, but it is necessary for many churches, okay, because you want to have a brand, meaning you want to have a reputation. Now, again, you don't need corporate branding with all 100-page style guide and all the assets and everything. I mean, we set you up with assets, but you don't need all of that Southwest Airlines has, okay? Which, by the way, if you're a designer and you want to look at a great brand guide, go look at Southwest Airlines. It's fantastic. I love their brand guide. But that's a misconception, is thinking that I don't need a brand, okay? If you think you don't need a brand, and I tell you not all churches need a brand, I'm talking about a minority, all right? A minority don't need a brand. A majority actually do. Another misconception that churches often have is they think that branding is just a tagline and a mission statement. Specifically when I'm talking about communicative branding, brand messaging, we often call it. They think that it's just a tagline. So when I tell people, do you have a brand message? And it's like, oh yeah, on fire for God to light up the world. Like, okay, first of all, great message. It's a little weird to the outsider person, but I personally like it. And then I ask, do you have a brand message? And they say, yeah, we are disciples who make disciples. All right, that's great. Mission statement are internal. We've already talked about this. We've already hammered this. Okay, I'm loving it is not McDonald's mission statement. That's their tagline. All right, you don't even know McDonald's mission statement. They're one of the largest corporations in the world. All right, because the mission statement is not a brand message. All right, and it's also not your tagline. So church brand messaging, a lot of misconceptions are out there is that, oh yeah, we have brand messaging, we had a tagline, on fire for Christ and setting the world on fire. I don't know, whatever I said before. That's a tagline. That's not your brand message. Another misconception, we'll talk about how to make your brand message in a second. Another misconception, okay, is that brand messaging doesn't change. The way that we talked about the church to people in the 80s is exactly how we should do it now. That's not the case anymore. Now we have to constantly be aware of the message that we're presenting to people, because there may be words that we used to use that absolutely clarified what we mean, that if we use them now, will shut people off, will turn them away, and will miscommunicate what we're trying to communicate, okay? So that's the misconceptions. Now, let me share with you, a lot of pastors I talk to, they say, okay, I know we need a brand message. I know we need branding. I know we need to be clear, but here's what I see. Number one, I see a lot of churches neglect to serve or craft a brand message around who they're called to serve, okay? A lot of churches, especially revitalizing ones that don't exactly know what they're trying to do, they just know they need to do something, they pick a target audience. And you've heard me say this before, target audiences are only good for marketing corporations, businesses, and in the church world, church plants, okay? A target audience is someone that you want to reach that you typically have not reached yet. That's why it's a target. It's not who you have, it's who you want to have. All right? And a church plant doesn't have anyone. So of course they've got to have a target audience. But for most churches that are going to be watching this show, especially, you don't want a target audience. You just need to know who you're best equipped to serve. Because every church is uniquely equipped to uniquely reach a unique group. I keep backing up. I don't know why I keep backing up. Every church is uniquely equipped to uniquely reach a unique group of people. And to have a target audience, you run the risk of having that separated from who you're called to serve. So two things happen. Number one, you leave the people that you are equipping, you are encouraging, you are discipling together. It's a group effort. You're leaving them behind and you're going to go to try to serve someone else that you have no business serving. It's like leaving your congregation to go chase Korean language speaking community. You don't speak Korean. Once they come into the flock, they can't be discipled because they don't speak the language. God has gifted you to reach a unique group of people. So instead of saying we want to reach more of this kind of person that you've never been able to reach before, I don't know why you think you'd be able to reach them now. Instead, look at who you are reaching. And if there is a demographic that you want to bring in that you've never brought in before, instead of looking at all the differences, which is one of the greatest assets the devil has, is getting us to see the differences of everything. We already know how frustrating this is in America. We say, well, we have these people, we want people that don't have that, so let's go chase the differences. No, look at the similarities. Look, if you're an older church, I guarantee you there are Gen Zers, millennials, and even Gen Alpha people that want to be around that wisdom because we're around idiots most of the time, okay? So there are young people that you can bring into your church that will go right in and be discipled by your older congregation. That's just one example. But instead, what I see a lot of churches doing, man, I'm really honing on this. I'm really honing on this target audience, but it is a pet peeve of mine. Instead, what churches do, and they say, look, we got a bunch of old heads. Let's go get some new people. Let's go get some young, driven, youth-driven activities, and we're going to spend all this money on our youth center. But guess what? You're just reaching people that A, you can't serve, B, you've made a false impression to get them to think that you're a young church, and they come in and they just see a bunch of grandpas and they're like, this isn't what I signed up for. Meanwhile, all the people that are looking for that older wisdom, are looking for that older faith community, they see the messaging that you're so young and hip and we want young people. That's not what they're looking for. So you see, if you just focus on the differences, you're not going to go anywhere when you just have a target audience. So you need to make sure that as you craft your brand messaging, which we're going to talk about how to do in a second, you need to define who you're equipped to serve and stop chasing a target audience, but instead find the people that can fit into your flock, that can effectively be discipled. Treat it like language. You're not going to go bring a bunch of Chinese-speaking people to your English-speaking church and you have no idea how to communicate with each other. All right. Another mistake I see is when churches just grab brand messaging that sounds good but doesn't actually reflect the core values and vision of the church. All right. If you want to be a wild thinking church, then be a wild thinking church. There's a great church down the road from me that their mission statement is to turn Houston into a God-fearing city. And that's a why. I even talked to a guy that used to work there and I was like, that seems pretty wild, doesn't it? And he's like, we're a pretty wild church. Okay. But if you are a local church that really is just planted for the 2-mile radius, if you grab a mission statement or a vision statement like that, and you apply it to your 40-person congregation that God's really only called you to grow to 200 possibly, and you say, we're going to turn 3 million people into God-fearing people, that doesn't match your core values. That doesn't match the neighborhood focus that God has given your church and planted your church to reach. Because churches like that, while they have their place, maybe it's not for the people within 2 miles of you. That's why you plant it. So creating a brand message that doesn't accurately reflect your values and your giftings and your vision, it's going to create disassociation. And that frustrates your congregation and it frustrates people that come to you expecting one thing and not getting what they were expecting, okay? And if you notice the big theme of brand messaging when you are crafting a brand message that's more than a tagline is to be authentic, be transparent, be you, and spend some time knowing who you are. The other mistake I see a lot, and this has nothing to do with that, is just using overly religious jargon. And that especially is going to turn off the de-churched, because if I was hurt by a church who said that their disciples making disciples and the way they made disciples was judging you and making you dress up and be someone you're not supposed to be on Sunday morning, when I see a church that is effectively called and equipped to serve me, but I hear them say, oh, we're disciples, we make disciples, I'm going to think you're exactly like the one that hurt me, and I'm going to disengage. So all that, I know I just went on a tirade, this stuff, this is why I started this agency, okay? And why I started this show, which by the way, I haven't been monitoring the comments. If anyone's commenting, I apologize if I missed. I don't have that screen up. Can I pull up my comments real quick? Window, comments. Awesome, cool. So that's what happens. I know I just harped a lot on what happens when you don't have your brand messaging done well. Okay, but when you do it well, here's what happens. Number one, you have a strong sense of awareness in the community. People don't know that you're just a church. You know that you are the church. Meaning, I know that Woods Edge Church is not a church for my family, but they are a great church for people who are on fire for God and need something bigger than a neighborhood church, okay? I do believe, even though I go to a small church and I love serving small churches, our average church size at Nava Church Marketing that we serve is 125 people, because we want to get them to a larger point, whatever God's calling them to be, whether it's 150, 200, or eventually 2,000. We've seen that happen. So, there are some people that are better served by larger churches. There are some people that are better served by smaller churches. Now, that Woods Edge Church is not for my family, but they are for so many families. That's why God's blessed them and sent so many people to be served and equipped and engaged and discipled and saved in that church. Okay? And so I don't know that they are just, let me restart. I don't just know they're a church. I know that they are the church for someone that really wants to pour in, get plugged in, and serve, because they're doing stuff every week. Okay, and they're fantastic. They're a great place to plug in. Whereas the church down the road from me, that's the old school KJV church. That's not a family that's going to be served well at Woods Edge is not going to be served well at the KJV church. Okay, so I know this because both of these churches have strong brands. Okay, and so that's what happens. You have a sense of awareness, so people know who you're called to serve. And when I see someone that just moves in the area and they don't have a family, but they want to get back into church, but they want church like they used to experience it, I'm not sending them to the big modern church. I'm sending them to the KJV. My wife's wearing a dress church. Okay, say what you will about that. I know I don't judge as much as I probably should, but I know that I have a strong sense of awareness in that church because they've done some good branding work. And yeah, even small KJV only churches can do good branding work, okay? The other thing you'll notice when you get your brand message clear, like I'm about to show you how to do, you're gonna notice you're gonna have better engagement with congregation members, okay? Because your congregation, each one of them probably sees your church only as a certain kind of church. But if you can clarify that and have a banner for everyone to rally around, they're going to see, they're going to be on the same page, and they're going to be on the same mission, and they're going to be carrying out that mission in a similar way. So they won't be inviting their friends just to invite their friends to a church. They will be inviting their friends because they know that God has equipped your church to specifically serve that person, because they have young kids and God's blessed you with a great kids ministry. Or they've got young grandkids and God's blessed you with a great grandkids ministry. Or they live below the poverty line and God's blessed you to bless others to get them to the point of not worrying about their bills so they can start worrying about their salvation. Every church is uniquely equipped. And so if you can communicate that through your brand message, your congregation will be on the same page and it'll be easier for them to invite people, again, increasing that sense of awareness. And not only that, with that, you have increased interest from potential guests, because you won't have 200 people come into your church and only 20 stay throughout the year because they don't know who you are. They just know you're a church and they're looking for a church. Look, that's a great place to start. But what if instead of having 200 people come and 180 people leave and only 20 stay, what if maybe you honed in your brand messaging? So yeah, you might have fewer people coming because they know you're probably not a church for them. But what if you had 100 people come throughout the year and 80 of them stayed? Because the 100 people that came because they understood who you were, they felt understood by who you are, they knew they could be served, and so there's a greater chance that they chose the right church first rather than shopping around. That's what happens when you have brand messaging. So, what do? Let's get into what you do. You know what not to do. You know what's going to happen if you do this right. Let's get into what to do. Number one, you have to define what makes your church, and what separates you from everyone else. Okay? God planted your church to reach a group of people that other churches are not reaching. This is just as true for the 200-year-old churches as it is for the brand new church plants. If that's not the case, shut the doors down, close down, stop wasting God's resources, and go join with another church if y'all are supposed to be doing the same thing. It's a waste of money for all these churches to be operating if there only needs to be one church in town. But I believe every church is uniquely equipped to uniquely reach a unique group of people, and the way someone can receive the gospel and be saved and be served and be equipped and serve others is unique for each and every church. And you need to be able to define who that is. Who is the type of person that you're serving? Again, don't look at all the differences. Don't look at your congregation and say, we got all kinds of people. Oh gosh, my ring just slammed into my desk. I'm sorry for that. Don't look at your congregation and say, we got all kinds of people. Man, it really scared me. I'm like, now I know why I had my mic here. I couldn't do that with my mic before. Don't look at your congregation and say, we got all kinds of people. We got young, we got old, we got blue collar, we got white collar, we got poor, Stop looking at the differences. You keep looking at the differences, you're going to continue dividing everyone. Instead, look at what makes them the same. You know what? Doesn't matter how poor you are, how rich you are, how blue collar, white collar you are, what color you are, how old you are. I know that the 162 people in this church that God has given me accountability for, every one of them wants to see their legacy explode for God. Every one of them thinks that family is the most important thing, and family is what's going to keep their abundant living flowing. Every one of them knows that they were sick and now are healed, and there are more people that need God's healing grace. There are similarities across the spectrum of your congregation. Define what those are so you can find more people with those similarities. Then, and only then, once you know who you're equipped to serve, can you craft a messaging that includes what language you're going to use, what tone you're going to use, and what we call the memorable message. Now, the memorable message is something that we teach you inside of our coaching program or that we craft for you as an agency when you work with us. But essentially, that is figuring out what is the problem that your church exists to solve at the most highest level. Yes, your church can solve 100 problems, okay? But McDonald's can serve a lot of foods. The main problem they help is I'm hungry and I don't have a lot of money, all right? So you need to figure out what's that big thing, right? For some of our clients, it's people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. People are afraid that when they pass, the community is going to go to hell because their Christian legacy is not being passed to their family and therefore not being lived out in the community. There's another church that says, hey, we know there's a lot of fake, phony churches out there. One of them is across the street from us. They don't say that, but they know that. And so they want to really get on the ground and wrestle with people in their faith to see Jesus Christ, right? Now, naturally, that's a smaller church, but that's cool. You have to craft a messaging strategy that reflects who your church is and who you're called to serve. You start with that problem and then you address your church as the solution. How does that solve it? How does your Sunday morning service help me live more abundantly and peacefully? Because they had a Sunday service at 10:32. So don't tell me it's because it's at 11 that helps me. You see how the language we use as churches, Sunday at 11, God wants to meet you here. He wants to meet me everywhere, even at home. So what message do you have for me when you know who your church is called to serve? Look, we know you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the reason why you can't get past where you are right now is because you haven't found the great giver, the great gracious one that gave breath in your life to seek him for healing. You're constantly chasing things around. He has a healing message for you Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. And if you want to be healed, if you want to see what God can do in your life that no one and nothing else can, this is the place to be Sunday at 11. You see how the difference is? It's not just, hey, church is great, come Sunday. It's you have a problem, Our church is equipped to fix it in the name of Jesus Christ, and here's what you need to do next. That's your memorable message. Can you compile those three things? And can you educate your entire church leadership and eventually your members to follow that same kind of messaging? Because if that's the kind of church that I am, I don't want my church members coming to say, hey, we got a great band. Come to church because the band is great. Right? That may be true, but I want someone to come because they want God, not just good music. Does that make sense? And the last thing you need to do is make sure your communication is consistent. The worst thing you can do, one of the worst things you can do, is to have inconsistent messaging throughout your communications. All right? I just saw what time it is, so we're probably just going to only hit this, and we'll hit the ethics of persuasion and religious messaging next time, because that's the next thing I wanted to talk about. But hey, we're just going to look at the brand messaging here. You don't want to be online on social media all about, there's a lot of people that have not been satisfied in their faith journey. They know there's something out there, but every time they go to church, they're met with a motivational speaker, a feel-good attitude, and they go home just as empty as they woke up with. That's a problem, and that's not what our church is going to do. At our church, we're going to wrestle with the facts. We're going to wrestle with the hard truths so we can get to the core of who we are, why we were created, and how great and grand this glorious God is. Ooh, I like that. Okay? So when I have that message online, but then when they come in and everyone's just kind of doing their own thing and no one's really asking hard questions, that's a disconnect. Okay? If I say that we're all about that on social media, but when they come in, all the signs and the bulletin is just Jesus loves you, and it's the same graphics and everything that all the other churches are using. I'm not saying you can't use the same graphics. I'm saying the same kind of language in the graphics that other churches are using. It creates disconnection, misrepresentation. It creates a little bit of inconsistency, which breeds mistrust. So you have to make sure that your language is consistent across all platforms, all right? Just in the same way that you don't want people you want people inviting to your church regardless probably, but I would prefer them to invite because they recognize that our church can really, really help this person in the name of Jesus Christ. I don't want them to come to church just because we got a great band. I'm sure we got a great band. I'm sure you got a great band. Is there such thing as a bad worship band? Leave a comment down below. I'd be interested to know your thoughts. Or I'll ask the question on social media. But that's fine. Invite them for that. Maybe they'll meet Jesus regardless. But I want them to invite people that they know we can serve because we've done the work to figure out who we can serve, what the big problem is that's going to capture their attention and get them to connect. And I want to make sure that the consistent message is across the board. I don't want one person to know two people in our church and one of our congregants says, oh, it's a great church. It's so young and so great and so vibrant. I love it. And another person's like, oh, it's just like church in the 60s. It's great. We need to get back to the way church used to be. Like, that's disconnecting. I don't know what this church is. I ain't going. Okay? So, again, let's recap here and make sure that you've got what you need to go out and actually craft a good brand message that's going to capture people's attention, that's going to get them to feel understood, and to get them to understand why they should connect with you. Okay? You need to know who you are and who you're equipped to serve. Then you need to craft a brand message that appeals to the other people that you can serve in your community. And the way you do that is with your memorable message. What is their main problem in life? How does your church solve it? And what should they do next to get alleviation from that? Now, I'm not saying, obviously God's going to bless you, so we need to just go after poor people. No, it's a little bit more finite than that. You're not going to come up with this in a few minutes. You're going to wrestle with this for a few weeks. And then you're going to realize you kind of were along the wrong track, and you back it up and you try to do it again. It's part of the process unless you work with us or have us show you exactly how to work through that, so you only have to do it one time to get the foundation of it, okay? But what's that number one pain point? For our church, Crosswaves Church, it's people want to share Jesus with their friends and family, but they're just not comfortable how, and they're not comfortable with their neighboring churches, okay? That's the problem. The people that we are equipped to serve would resonate with that. Oh man, you're right, absolutely. In fact, there's a message I got to respond to on our Facebook because they saw something about that. And then you got to figure out, okay, how does the church position to answer that problem? Well, again, using our church as an example, at Crosswaves, we give you the tools to share Jesus with your friends and family at home and have biblical church at the same time. So you don't have to pick the lesser of two evils if you ain't got no good churches around you, meaning churches that are either false teachers, false prophets, wolves in sheep's clothing, or just are not equipped to serve you and your family in a righteous way, okay? So we help them just have church in their home, okay? And why should they care? Well, because your family and friends are going to receive the same, they're going to see the same God, the same Jesus, and they're going to be brothers and sisters with you in Christ, right? Who doesn't want that? Now, that's not going to resonate with everyone. If I go to Joe Schmo off the street, it's not going to resonate with him. But the people that are dissatisfied with their discipleship right now, that's going to resonate with them. And a lot of people are going to say, that's a weird church. That's not for me. Great. It's not for you. But we will reach those people who it is for, and the kingdom will grow because we're feeding people, we're serving people, and we're bringing people into the fold in the way that our church is called and equipped to do it. Every church is uniquely equipped to uniquely serve a unique group of people. So find that problem. What's the main thing? Okay, and it's going to be broad. That's fine. How does your church fit into that? Okay, and then what do they need to do to expect the outcome? All right, get it consistent across all of your congregation. Start with your leadership. It's got to go from top down. Starts with you, pastor. Then it goes to the pastors. Then it goes to the staff and leaders and lay leaders. And then it eventually bleeds down into the members. And then it bleeds out to the community. So everyone in the community knows what you're about, whether they like it or whether they hate it. It's better to be known and hated than never known at all. Okay? So that's what's going to happen. And you get that brand messaging done well, done consistently, done over time, people are going to know your church. And even though they might not feel God's call right now, when they do feel it, or when they enter a new season of life, they're going to go to who they know first. And better that they know you already than have to go ask friends and family or do a Google search, because that's where the wolves in sheep's clothing, that's where the false teachers and false prophets live. All right? Nothing breaks my heart more than a good church who doesn't know how to tell people they're a good church. Because I guarantee you, the wolves out there, they're telling people. They're lying. They're manipulating. They're straying them away from the path. Because the good churches have not grasped how to reach the community in 2024. This is how. And then everything bleeds out from here. You no longer have to think about what do I need to post on social media. You don't even have to think about what do I need to teach this year. Because you know what's hurting your people. You know what's hurting your community. What sermon am I going to invite people to? A sermon about what it means to take communion and how often it is, and a study on communion? Am I going to want to invite my lost friends to that? Or am I going to want to invite them to a study on peace, because I know my friend's going through divorce, his kids hate him, and we've got a sermon on how to find perfect peace inside and live through whatever life throws at us because we live for a greater purpose? I want Dave in on that. Dave doesn't care about communion timing. He cares about whether he wants to wake up tomorrow. So you get your brand messaging down, your sermons are planned. Your social media is planned. Your events are planned. You're no longer wondering what's going to get people to come to our church. You know what's going to get them to come. So how do you plan an event to reach that kind of person that you can serve and then share the gospel with? You see how this is the foundation. This is why I'm starting 2024 with this topic, because this is what bleeds out into everything else. Next week, we're going to have our interview. It's our second interview of the show, first interview of 2024. We're going to have Jason Moore on the show to answer some of the questions share with you some of the questions that people are asking, that they're asking themselves, but they're too afraid to ask you as a church. Okay? When people are looking to visit a church, if you don't answer the questions that they're not asking but have, they're going to find a different church that is. And if God's calling them to your church and you do nothing to remove the obstacles, nothing to make it easy, nothing to make you approachable, they will skip out and again go to another church that's not effectively equipped to serve them, so they go get burned out and leave, or another church that's going to lead them astray and give them a false gospel. It is our job, it is your job as a church leader to do whatever it takes to remove those obstacles and to make it easy, not simple, easy for someone to say, I'm going to go to that church Jason's going to share with us the questions they have that they're not asking, that we need to make sure we answer. That's going to help them feel understood. That's going to make you seem approachable, because you will be approachable. And that's what's going to get them to you so you can share the gospel with them. Everything in the name of Jesus Christ, may God be glorified. So thank you for watching. I want to know, kind of a random question that came up in the middle of the show. Do you think there's such thing as a bad worship band? I'm curious, I think some people would take offense to that if I called their worship band bad, but I can understand why some would. Again, I don't judge as much as I probably should. Thank you for watching this. 2024 is going to be an amazing year for the church if we take advantage of it. If we open up and say, God, show us what to do. Show us, even if it's not from me and what God's given me to share with you. If you just open up and say, let's impact our community before politics does, before media and Hollywood does, because they're trying. And if the church just sits here in our little corner and says, we're just going to keep doing what we do, the community will keep doing what it's doing, which is going to hell. We need to get out and we need to reach people using modern marketing methods. Yes, that's the way I teach it. But we need to get out of our comfort zone and go and reach people where they are to bring them in to share the gospel with them, to grow the faith community so that they can be encouraging and discipling one another and go out and make more disciples. That's what this is for. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment down below. I'm interested to know what you thought about this show. Next week, like I said, we'll have Jason Moore on. So make sure you like, subscribe wherever you are. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. We'll try to get these audio kinks worked out. And I will see you all next week. God bless.
That's going to do it for today's episode of the Best Known Church Show with Justin Nava. Be sure to subscribe to stay updated on the latest news, strategies, and resources that you need to reach 10x more people and become the best known in your community. To send us a message or leave a voicemail for Justin to be played on a future show, visit thebestknownchurchshow.com. And if you'd like to work with us so you can focus on your ministry, give us a call at 832-861-7654. Until next time, stay outrageous, unreasonable, and relentless.